Wednesday, the 10th of April, 2024. If I could ask you to stand for karakia and council affirmation. Whakataka te hau ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te tonga, kia mā kena kena ki uta, kia mā tara tara ki tai, ihi aki ana te atakura, he tio, he huka, he hohu, tihei, mauri ora. Let us today affirm that we as councillors will work together to serve the citizens of Selwyn District, to always use our gifts of understanding, courage, common sense, wisdom and integrity in all our discussions, dealings and decisions so that we may solve problems effectively. May we always recognise each other's values and opinions, be fair-minded and ready to listen to each other's point of view. In our dealings with each other, let us always be open to the truth of others and ready to seek agreement, slow to take offence and always prepared to forgive. May we always work to enhance the well-being of the Selwyn District and its communities. We will. So welcome along to today's meeting. There's no apologies, I think we're all present, but I'd just like to highlight a guest that's here with us today. Adia Mackay is sitting in the back row. Adia is working with me this year in a mentoring relationship and attending the 2-year program, which has a number of wānanga, bringing rangatahi from across Aotearoa together 3 or 4 times this year. It's a program that it's been running since well before I was the Mayor, and Kelvin has supported various members from Taumutu and Adia. It's really great to have you with us today. And when it comes to my report later, I might just get you to introduce yourself at that point. There are no identification of any extraordinary business. I haven't received anything that's not on the agenda. There's no conflicts of interest that have been raised with me, but if anyone has anything further through the meeting today that they realise they need to raise, then please feel free to do that either now or at the time. The public excluded, we can do it public excluded time. And so we move to the public forum. And Susan Farmer, thank you for coming in today to talk to us. If you'd like to come forward to the seats, there's a microphone sitting in front of you. The microphone works just by pressing the right-hand button. One press turns it on, and you press it again to turn it off. And around public forum, we'll allow about 10 minutes for this conversation, and there may be some questions that councillors have for you based on your presentation as well. And yeah, look forward to hearing from you. Thanks.
Thank you very much. And thank you for this opportunity. I'm aware of the responsibilities that you carry, so thank you. My name's Susan. My life experience has taken me through the tertiary education, through the performance, music performance world of orchestra and chamber music. So I have a certain amount of training in critical thinking, I guess. And as a woman, I returned to New Zealand, having spent years in Australia and England, London, in pursuing my career. I am now milking cows. Not a huge herd, but enough to keep me in overflow of milk. Anyway, I was rung a few weeks ago with the request to participate in the Selwyn District Council climate change survey. It was a telephone call always at 6 o'clock at night when you're trying to get dinner in its completed stage. Nice young man. And on asking him how long it was going to take, he said, oh, if I read it very, very fast, 10 minutes. I think it was probably nearer 25 by the time we'd finished, and he was doing very well. Anyway, the issue here was that this is not a good document in terms of, it's about climate change, obviously, and you've got to come from the point of view that there's an other side to it. So this begs the question. It actually starts with the assumption that climate change is real. Climate change is real. It comes and goes. Climate change as a narrative, climate crisis as a narrative, is a lie. It is a scam. You have in your very first question, which, if any of the following, do you believe contributes to the climate change impact? And then it gives you a list, emissions from vehicles, deforestation, agricultural practices, energy production from fossil fuels, waste production, management. Other, please specify. And in that other, there are a variety of options that have not been included. One of them is natural climate variations. And this is a scientific, no, this is science in recordings. There are some very, very interesting people. I actually think that this is data that that you're aware of, that it is not obviously the current narrative, because the narrative is that which serves the corporation. But this is science, and it's being shouted loud and clearly. I'm not going to go into the details, we just don't have the time for that. But I have plenty of references if anybody is actually interested. And that's the question. Are you actually interested? Because, in fact, being a corporation, your primary responsibility as a corporation is to provide money for the stakeholders. Now, the stakeholders, I do not see, given the local government funding agency situation, I do not believe that the stakeholders are in fact your ratepayers. I see on your website that the ratepayers are 60% of the property owners are 60% of your income. So that's a fairly large supply of finances. Are the ratepayers given options, different options, natural selection, what was it, natural climate variation? Another one that contributes to the climate change narrative is the global weather modification industry. Now, that's something that the government says they have no information on. That's both the the Ministry for the Environment and also NIWA. And if you go onto NIWA's website, there it is, delightful screenshots of their weather modification stuff and their link to the Royal Society, who have in London, who are the people for whom their policies are based. And if you read the Royal Society policies, then it's certainly about weather modification and persuading the people. Anyway, look, all of this is something that either you are going to choose to look at or not choose to look at, or choose to not look at, I should say. And it comes into conflict, if you like, with the role that you act here as members of a corporation, councillors, But in actual fact, you're just as much a man and a woman as I am a woman. So the distinction between you and me and what's happening here in the survey, because this survey, let's be honest, this survey is the Hegelian dialectic. Has anybody come across that? Do you know what that is?
No.
Right? Problem, reaction, solution. It's what the World Health Organization, the United Nations, and the WEF use. That's what COVID was. Problem, reaction, solution. That's what this is. Pure and simple. You read in fact, you read the beginnings of this, the objectives, first off, the awareness, the business awareness of the Solomon community of the anticipated climate change. Who says there's a crisis? Of course the climate changes. Huh? Who says? Whose narrative are you listening to? You're listening to the WEF, or are you listening to science? Where are you going to look for your information? You have so much responsibility. It's very interesting looking at your oath that you've just repeated. Fascinating. Your primary responsibility isn't to us, the ratepayers. As a council, a corporation, you are responsible to those who fund your indebtedness. And that's where the money primarily goes. So all of this care, all of these kind little words about enhancing your well-being and providing for you is a lie. It's the interface between man and women and their comings and goings together. It's designed to divide us. Your roles are designed to divide me from you. You have an authority to make some decisions. Well, that's fine. But this is a lie. It's the only possible interface between man and woman and corporations. There's no other possible interface. It's deception. And it's built on fear. That is the tool. That is the weapon. Problem, create a problem. It's been created for you. You just have to download from the WEF and the United Nations and anybody who's funded by them. Download it from them. They've created the problem, and because you're a corporation, you're behind it. You have to. That's your responsibility as an incorporated body. Solution. There you are, back of your page. From, I think, 12 onwards. No, 8 onwards. Solution. The fear, I tell you what, the fear. Have a look on the survey, it's fascinating. Question number 3. Fear, my word. Here's the question. Thinking about the future, to what extent do you anticipate the following impacts? Impacts. The number of times impact appears in this. This is a very carefully and cleverly crafted piece of propaganda. Whoever commissioned this gave briefs. This is propaganda. It is programming. It is no different.
Sorry, I'll just coming to the end of the 10 minutes, and I just wondered if there were any other things you'd like to share with us before I open for any questions.
Thank you. I'll make just a closing comment here. In enacting your roles as commissioners and ratifiers of this survey, you are bound in your roles. Yeah, it is an unloving role. You have imposed actions that are harmful to people because this is psychological manipulation.
Susan, thank you for. Sorry, if you have something else.
I was just going to say it is a trespass upon the property of myself. That is my body, and that is the environment that you create in your policies. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for coming in and sharing your views with us today. And there are a couple of things that you mentioned just about us. And so we're not an incorporated society or a corporation. We, as the council, are elected community members and our first and foremost are here to serve the citizens of Selwyn District. And we take an oath at the beginning of our term that our primary focus is the citizens of Selwyn District. And so I just want to assure you that as we take that into consideration with all the decisions that we make, is how do we serve individuals, families, communities, and the district of Selwyn and what we do. Are there any questions that councillors have? Elizabeth.
Thank you for sharing with us, Susan. I just want to clarify. So with the, obviously the topic is something that council needed to engage on. is your primary primary concern the way that the questions were worded? Can you just expand a bit on why exactly in detail it didn't work for you, and you feel that
Yes, I probably
you didn't have the options available to say what you wanted? Thank you.
Thank you. I probably didn't make that clear enough. It was the very first question. There was no options given. So there's no options for other interplays with what might cause climate change. Therefore, the rest of the questions were premised upon that first question and the statement of anticipated extreme weather events becoming more variable, few things. So it was an issue that was underneath every question, and there were no options for any other possibilities to be expressed.
Thank you. Sophie?
Yeah, I can appreciate it'd be annoying if you wanted to say something that wasn't covered in the other boxes, or unwillingness to, or not seeing what you would like to put in the questions that were there. I guess my question is around the reason why the survey assumes that climate change is real is because the vast majority of scientists do believe it is real. And yes, there are a loud vocal minority who do not believe in it, but the majority do. So what if you're wrong?
Sorry, so
we're doing the survey because the majority of scientists over the last 50 years have pointed towards climate change being real.
Well, I mean, as I say, that is a choice that climate change is real. Nobody's denying that. It's the manner in which climate change crisis is a narrative.
Sorry, I should have classified, been more clear.
So,
anthropogenic climate change.
So the issue is whether, in fact, we've got a contributing factor to the climate change and whether we can do anything about it. And the efforts to mitigate and adapt on all of this, these language chips come from the World Economic Forum. It's a political ideology that's coming through the Greens, and it's I've lost my thread of thought. I can't remember what your statement. Oh, your statement was that the majority of scientists. I personally wouldn't know what the majority of scientists say, because I don't think there's ever been a global forum of a majority of scientists where at this stage this has been debated. I know a lot of scientists have been cancelled. So it's about debate, it's about dialogue, it's about interface. And I don't see dialogue and interface and options for different opinions being sought and used. I do hear a lot of jargonese coming through that I hear and read in Agenda 2030. It's the same verbiage.
Thank you. Phil?
Susan, thank you for coming in today. It's good to hear your words. I'm confident in the fact that the council has a forum like this where we can hear everyone's forum. So
yeah.
I thank you for coming in.
Thank you for hearing me
and sharing your thoughts.
Thanks, Susan. And towards the end of the meeting, we'll have a bit of a conversation about what the response might be to the public forum. We don't have an answer for you on what you've raised today, but we do want to think about what the next steps look like. So as Phil said, we appreciate you coming in and sharing your views with us. Thank you.
Many thanks.
Councillors, the next item is on page 6 of today's agenda, which is the confirmation of minutes from 2 previous meetings, the 13th of March and the 27th of March. The first one is the 13th of March. Phil?
Yes, I have a couple of things to correct on there. One of them might be a matters arising as opposed to a item 8 is I've been nominated for along with some other councillors to work on the Castle Hill Reserve Management Plan. and I'm not able to do so. So Sophie McGuinness was mentioned as a possible alternative for there. So I'm not sure how to deal with that, isn't it? That can just be changed in the minutes. It was passed as a motion at the time, so I suspect it might have been matters arising and we change that.
Yep.
Yep.
Have you had any discussions with anyone else about picking up that spot? Otherwise, we'll bring a conversation back to full circle. At the moment, the minutes represent the decision that was there at the meeting.
Yep.
Thanks for highlighting there needs to be a
Yep.
change.
Sorry.
And
But it's a matters arising thing. There.
Yep, we'll figure out a way to.
There is one other thing, and this is just for the minute takers. There's no S at the end of my name. It's just Dean, D-E-A-N.
Nice. Thank you. Any other comments, Megan?
Yes, just to note that I was present. That's the first minute correction. But also in the discussion on Selwyn Huts, I know that we're not taking verbatim records of what's said, but I would like recorded the statement from Tomutu since it was read. And so I don't think everything needs to be stated, but what I thought would be fair to record was that a statement was read that confirmed Tomutu's position that had been expressed to council and the community, which was that we supported Turunanga Ngāi decision to end Green Park Huts leases on the 30th of June this year, and we sought alignment with that approach.
Which is
If
a
you weren't
summary of
comfortable.
what was said rather than
Yeah.
all of the detail, but it alludes to the thing. Okay, thank you for that. Did anyone else have any other? Lydia, sorry.
Mine's just from the extraordinary meeting on the 27th of March and just reading the discussion about the consultation document. And
Sorry, Lydia, that's the 27th of March meeting.
yes,
We'll just close off. Sorry, I did.
Oh, cool. Okay,
Can we just
sorry.
close off the 13th first?
I thought you said both.
So the 13th then will, because someone move in second with those changes that have been highlighted today that they're true and accurate. Thank you, Bob. Seconded, Lydia. All those in favour say aye. Anyone against? Declare it carried. And then the matter arising there is Phil Dean's inclusion. Is there a time pressure on that decision being made today? Or can it be made? There is a time pressure on it. Is someone else able to step in for Phil in this instance? Is anyone else other than Sophie willing? Is everyone okay that we include Sophie in that spot for Phil? Great, if that could just be recorded as happening to replace the resolution that was previously had Phil there. And another matter arising, Deborah?
Question around a question from Mr. Harris, because he was unsure about the time what was listed on the note. Sorry, got the paragraph, they're halfway down the page. In a response to a question by council about information provided by way of the note.
Yep, what needs to be raised?
The question is, I thought there was going to be, that was going to be further investigated as to what was on the note and it's going to be shared with the council.
Tim, is there any update on that matter?
Yes, there is, and there's not that many limb notes actually in existence. There's only about 7, I think, from about 2017, and there's various versions of the limb notes. So there's not one consistent note on them. They seem to change from year to year, and certainly that has been explored by some members of the community at the Selwyn Huts, and we've given some information. So certainly I can circulate the iterations of the notes on the limbs.
Is there a common theme coming through with regards to the deed of
Since
license?
2019, there's limb notes that indicate there's going to be a change in the tenure and the nature of the deed of license. So that's a common theme. There was a letter that went out 2019 from Mr. Marshall, I believe, that indicated that there was going to be a review, and it's likely that there would be some limitation put on the duration of the tenure. So that's the common theme. I'm certainly happy to circulate some of the wording, if that would help.
Thanks, Tim. Any other matters arising from those minutes? No. Then we move on to the extraordinary meeting on the 27th of March. Lydia, you had a comment on the minutes?
Yeah, it did. It was just in relation to the consultation document, and I'm not sure if the essence of the words that I said have been captured here. And to use Megan words, I'm not asking for verbatim, but when we say that councillors went on to say how pleased they were to see all of the other supporting documents available, I'd actually brought up that I wasn't that happy that there was limited information in this consultation document for the community.
How would you like that to be reflected?
I guess it might look something like there's concern around the lack of information in this consultation document compared to years gone past. So I'd had the discussion around there was no listing of CapEx projects, there's not a lot in here, and I had concerns around how the community was going to give us feedback on how we are doing things without limited information. I note now that the activity management plans are listed online, but for our community to trawl through thousands of pages to find capital projects lists is not a reality.
So maybe a note that includes the consultation document isn't exhaustive with all the information that councillors want made available to the community. And that needs to be available.
Yep, I'm happy with that.
Okay. Something like that. Yep. Thank you. Megan.
Yes, and I had one thing again, just to capture what I did say there, which was that the new deliberation dates meant that mana whenua representation would be unavailable to be part of the long-term plan process or hearing, sorry, and deliberations. And the reason I want that noted is I want to make sure that my community does know that I did try. So.
Thank you. And for both those comments and the way that the minutes are shaping is that these are matters that council discussed rather than attributing the matter to any particular councillor, so that it's about the group ownership of the decisions made. So for both those, they'll be included, but it won't say Megan or Lydia. It says as part of the council's discussions. Great. And with those two changes, as a mover and a seconder for those minutes, Shane, Malcolm, thank you. All those in favour say aye. Anyone against? Declare it carried. We move to my report, tab 6 or page 30 of today's agenda. And Adia, I'll get you to introduce yourself to start off. There's a microphone should be in front of you, and just press the right hand button, turns the mic on.
Kia ora, ko Nokumania te Maunga, ko Orokaia te Awa, ko Waihora te Hapua, ko Ngaitahu te Iwi, ko Ngaitarua Hiki te Hapu, ko Ngāti Muki te Marae, ko Les Hala Taku Pawa, ko Megan Mackay Taku Whaia, ko Adia Mackay Taku Tōku Ingoa no Taumutu Aho. So, kia ora, my name is Adia Mackay. I am on the Tuia program. So, essentially what that looks like is Sam is my mentor for the next 12 months, and I'll go on multiple different wānanga throughout the year with other young Māori who are also in the Tuia program with other mayors. So, yeah, kia ora.
Thanks, Adia. And as a part of that, we've had a tour around the facility here. There's the off-site stuff, but keen to look at experiencing the range of things that council does for exposure around what the opportunity looks like for serving our community. And Adia also has to do a community contribution as a part of this year. And so we're working through what that's going to look like. I don't know if you want to say anything more about that piece at the moment.
Yeah, so we've discussed it a little bit. It's going to look something along the lines of I'm a Lincoln University student, and last year Kapahaka at Lincoln University had a Kapahaka group for the first time in over 20 years. And so I'm just going to be volunteering and helping keep that up and running and potentially going competitive this year. Last year we were non-competitive, so yeah.
Anyone have any questions I'd like to ask? No, great. Thank you, Adia, for sharing that with you, and we'll see you around the building over the coming 12 months. The other things that are in my report are there for you. One of the things that's coming up is Anzac ceremonies, and so thank you to the councillors that will be taking part in those. I was in Arthur's Pass yesterday, and they said, "Oh, we're going to have an Anzac ceremony dawn service on Anzac morning. Could you come?" So there's some communities have them year on year, and some communities run them intermittently. So thank you to those that are going to be turning up throughout the day on Anzac Day coming up. Happy to answer any questions that you might have within the report. And finally, I'll just say, looking forward to the combined sector meeting that LGNZ running on Thursday, Friday this week for those that are attending. One of the conversations there is with the Mayor of the Manchester Combined Authority, Andy Burnham. The Manchester model is a devolution model for the UK, which looks at how local governments, in some contexts, it can be talked about amalgamation as being like the solution for things. And in the north of England, they have, or across England, they have looked at other ways of working together collaboratively. And the Manchester model has a combined authority sitting alongside existing councils rather than having to combine them through an amalgamation. They used to have over 160 different funding mechanisms from central government around that to deliver services on behalf of Westminster. It's taken a really long time for them to get down to the single transaction that they have just signed up for. There used to be 160 different applications and accountabilities and reporting, and now that can be caught up in one. So I think as we think about the future of the shape of local government in New Zealand, and you'll recall 4 years ago when water came up, there was a lot of us that found that the water conversation was driving the outcome for local government, and actually we should have a local government shaped conversation, and then water will be a part of that rather than water being the driving factor. And as water's now back on very much in front of us to think about how we partner with our neighbours in Canterbury and across the Takiwā, then we need to consider that we don't just get driven to a water solution that doesn't serve our communities and all the other areas that council has to continue to provide services for. And on that, I have included an invitation from the Kaiwhakahaere of Ngāi Tahu, Justin Tipa, which echoes the words that he shared at Zone 5 and 6 conference 2 weeks ago, which is an invitation to try and have a conversation about is there an opportunity to work together on future shape, which is the same conversation that we have been having over the last 2 or 3 years, but this reignites that after probably 12 months of not much conversation in that space. And I think that we should be firmly having that conversation and making sure that we're open to all opportunities for what the future needs to look like. And on that, Sharon and I have been talking with PwC, we'll share that now. And so PwC are keen to give councillors a briefing on what the government's announcements last week might mean for us, and to have that as a joint presentation via Zoom or online next week, with Christchurch City Council also involved in that briefing, so that there's a breadth of understanding of what the government's announcements might mean, to then understand what we might want to decide the next steps needs to be. PwC was involved in the initial work to inform Canterbury councils and Ngāi Tahu around what our options and current situation was ahead of the last government's water reform. So this is 4 years ago work, and they have continued to work with Ngāi Tahu on some of that work, and so we're keen to understand that perspective as a part of the briefing. Sharon, do you want to add anything about that?
Yes, thank you, Sam. DIA will also be present, so the Director of Water Services, and they'll primarily do most of the talking at the briefing, and we're aiming for about 2:30 on Tuesday, and it'll be via Teams because trying to get everybody together can be problematic. And then as a follow-up to that, the Waters team will bring forward a discussion paper. We may even have a workshop first, as to once councillors have had heard and get a bit of understanding. We then need to workshop what does that mean for Selwyn, and where Selwyn's place is. So we'll be fitting in a workshop and then bringing a paper along.
Thanks, Sharon. And lastly, thanks to Councillors McInnes, Gladden and Miller for the events that you've attended on behalf of Council that are in the report over the last month. Thank you, Nicole.
Thanks, Sam. So third paragraph on your second page, so it's Rolleston College that you're referring to. Have you heard anything back from your letter that you wrote?
No, I haven't.
Yep.
Megan.
Oh, kia ora. Just wanted to speak to the letter on local water done well that that the Kaiwhakahaere has sent through, and I think his comments in the at the local government conference was changing that to local water done well together. So support that, and just want to acknowledge that traditionally it's been the role of the iwi to engage on takiwā-wide issues, which freshwater clearly is. But what we need to be mindful of is the role of each runanga as mana whenua and what their how they would guide those discussions, because there's a relationship agreement that says rangatiratanga sits with mana whenua between council and mana whenua. So need to be mindful of the role of the runanga and the role of the iwi. But I'm not quite sure about how the timing of everything's going to be sorted and talked through to do that really well and quickly.
Thanks, Megan. And I think at the moment that's keeping the conversation broad. We're not looking at finding any answers to this, and it's really important that all those parties are part of the thinking about that as we set it up. Sophie.
Yeah, sorry, I turned my light off because Nicole's question was pretty much the same as mine, but the only bit to add was I was just thinking it may be worth putting in this report that it is the Rolleston College second campus that you're talking about, because obviously we have many other schools, several other high schools, and quite a few of them have issues with the Ministry of Education at the moment in terms of buildings. So just for clarity.
The answer is yes, it was Rolleston College's second campus, and we did ask all the other high schools about their conversations with the Ministry of Education and did they want to be included in correspondence, and they didn't. So this was particular to the second campus. Thank you. We'll update that and my report will be changed to reflect that addition. Thank you. I'll move that you receive my report. Is there a seconder? Phil, all those in favour say aye. Anyone against? Declare it carried. We move on to the Chief Executive's report, which is on page 34. Sharon.
Thank you, Sam. Firstly, I'd like to welcome Steve Gibbling. Steve, if you'd just stand up. Steve is our new Executive Director of People, Culture and Capability, who started, I think, last week. Yes. So welcome, Steve. It's great to have you on board. And part of Steve's role will be pulling together a staff survey on behalf of the CEO for into the organisation, and looking to undertake the survey in a different way that really gives us a good sense and feel for organisation culture and well-being. And part of those survey results will be providing some high level response, hopefully through the provider that we choose, back to councillors. So for you as governors, you can get a good barometer about what the health and culture of the organisation is. So we look forward to doing that towards the end of this year, and we'll work through that process. Item number 3. I actually just took this out of actions arising and pulled it into my report. At last council meeting, there was an action item with regards to report on land banking, buying land now for future community facilities. I think a number of us were on slightly different pages as to what that actual item was, and when we stepped out of the meeting and actually unpicked it, unpacked, you'll see the 3 items below was actually, that's what the action point was related to. So my apologies, I was on a different tangent and I was expecting a completely different paper to be coming to council. So my apologies for that, but it was quite useful that actually talking with one particular councillor, it was pretty clear what that point was about. And so you can see you've broken it down into 3 key action points, one of which councillors have already received at the community meeting, governance meeting. And obviously section B is with regards to visiting a previous decision around a feasibility study on a gymnastics gym facility. So we'll get feedback through a variety of different ways.
Thanks, Sharon. Item C there around the policy team and associated report. Is that in relation to everything else in that paragraph, or is that?
It's related to Denise's area.
Just for clarification, it's related to a piece of work that George in the development and growth area is undertaking. Tim, you might be able to speak to that with a bit more clarity.
Yes, I believe it is a piece of work that's been undertaken by the policy team, identifying council-owned land and what it may look like, future uses may look like, as a stock take, and some ideas about what that land could be used for in the future. It aligns itself with the spatial plan, I guess, and Rolleston as a priority area. So that piece of work is underway. I'm not too sure where it's up to. Ryan's in the room. I don't know if he could have the other day. Do you want to pass it? Oh, Ben, sorry. I would. Yes,
Come forward.
Dance.
Yeah, we started a piece of work just because a lot of people were having different questions on bits of land around Rolleston. We was trying to come up with a way of being a bit more strategic about how we approach bits of land in that space. So currently the work is just to sort of say, what would we need in the next how many years in Rolleston specifically, and do we have what parts of the town would suit that best, and do we have bits of land that could be used for? So you could look at a piece of land in the township and say, yeah, it probably should be best used for that. Its main goal is to serve as a stopgap between doing the full kind of spatial plan, area plan work for Rolleston. It's just to try and provide some strategic direction for the whole business on those decisions. Yeah, hopefully soon. Yeah.
And that's the second part of the question. At the moment, it's just says later in 2024. That's 8 months of the year. Is it by the middle of the year? Is that by October? Is that by December?
Hopefully in the next month or two. Yes.
So thank you. I'm obviously having senior moments. I've seen the first draft of report. We wanted to bring that and workshop it with councillors because there was some good levels of information around growth and development.
Thank you. Phil.
I just want to clarify section 3.A. The Executive Director, Community Services and Facilities Report scheduled for 3 April 24 will provide an outline of blah, blah, blah. The date's gone.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what was held at the community services, the community governance meeting, is that Denise provided an update as part of her report.
So that's not the report that's going to come up later on in the year, which is all about the at our community services meeting, we talked about a particular hall, and at the time we were talking about considering all the halls together as the needs of all the halls, the way the halls are being used, and just want to make sure that that's still in our focal zone.
If I could speak to that, the intent with that report was to foreshadow the report that's coming at the end of the year, which is intended to do some things, but it won't have the answers for everything, but it will clearly outline the process, just to ensure that there weren't expectations that all of the potential considerations around future use of particular facilities, it's just to ensure that councillors didn't have an expectation that all of those answers would be included in that report, but it would present the timeline and some priorities and when councillors could expect that. So it was just to give you a bit of a sense of shape, and so what you will get at the end of the year is the work plan and a schedule of work, program of work that will fall out of it with timelines.
Okay, I wonder whether it's something that we should I don't know whether a workshop could be had around that, because obviously that's a big piece of work. And where I think there's lots that we need to consider together as opposed to piecemeal like we have been. The second part
Sorry, Phil, before we move on that, that'll be part of the community services committee that Bob chairs rather than at council. So there'll be space for that level of interaction.
I'm just saying, just make sure that it's in this report here, which is at council now. The second part of here is the second point, B, the long-term deliberation process will make provisions for council to revisit the previous decision around the undertaking of a feasibility study for a gymnastics facility within Selwyn. My understanding of that was that the feasibility study was going to be around all the community needs of Selwyn, not just gymnastics.
That you're quite right. There was two aspects of the discussion. So there was certainly a level of interest across council, as I understand, around looking at tools and mechanisms that council might consider when looking at opportunities for future facilities for different groups and different organisations and different purposes. So there is an intent with that report that's coming through to the end of the year to provide councillors with some options and information in that regard. There was also a relationship with that piece of work and a previous decision that had been made by council that needed to be revisited. And as I understand it, the intent of that is that the submission process will allow us to revisit that process in terms of the position that council might want to consider or take around a previous decision of council in terms of a gymnastics facility specifically. So there are two elements, and I'm sorry if that's confusing.
So just can you clarify, there are two elements. One is about the previous situation with the gymnastics facility, but at the same time, we're also going to do a feasibility study of what else is.
Yeah, the original conversation that took place with councillors did suggest that there would be some merit in looking at gymnastics facilities, and the feedback from councillors was very clear, as I recall it, that they wanted it to include a much broader range than just gymnastics facilities, but that didn't mean we didn't need to also consider the gymnastics facility.
Thank you.
Deborah.
Thank you. Just with regards to the staff survey, will it include any, if we've got them available, exit interviews? Is that part of the new way of looking at the surveys?
No. So the staff survey is related to the staff who are currently employed within the organisation. In terms of exit interviews, we'll go through to the Executive Director for People, Culture and Capability and the CEO, and a monitoring template will be developed with regards to are there any specific themes or concerns that are being raised through exit interviews. And I would envisage as part of whether we wrap it up into future health and safety reporting, but that's part of Steve's role, is to help design some frameworks around how we can share information safely, bearing in mind keeping contractual, but giving sufficient information for you as governance to give you satisfaction around the culture of the organisation.
And my second question is really around my understanding of the long-term plan deliberation process and looking at buying land for the future or future community facilities. A discussion was held in the last infrastructure and transport about opportunities when land purchases became available. And I'm just wondering whether there might be some confusion about the discussion that happened in transport, infrastructure and transport, about future land purchases, because it was a question I think that councillor Dean actually brought forward with regards to asking what process would that go through the deliberations of the LTP process if a piece of land did become available and was looked at for being strategically available. So just trying to clarify that and amongst the reporting that you've got in front of us.
So there's some really good learning here about when a matter's arising is captured, that we're really clear right from the outset what the actual matter is that we're addressing, because this has been quite challenging to actually work through what it was. So what I can say is that there'll be some good learning, that we're absolutely clear on any matters arising and we're very specific so that we don't get ourselves tied up in knots again in future. With regards to the discussion that took place at the infrastructure, there, I think I highlighted that there's a couple of papers coming through because there are some opportunities which have arisen about potential pieces of land, and we will bring through a discussion document, whether it's via a workshop pre-LTP or as a and I think that's probably the most likely way to get some guidance as to whether there is an appetite for a staff submission to come through that raises these opportunities, because they weren't fully realised at the time that the LTP was being pulled together. But part of some of the strategies that we're working through, the likes of the investment and disinvestment strategy, we also want to position ourselves into the future where we've got a framework that enables that we've got some clarity around when opportunities appear, and that we've got funding in the right place that would enable opportunities to be realised, rather than also making ad hoc decisions. So it's kind of coming together.
Okay, thank you.
Anything further on Sharon's report?
Just one from me, Sam. Tēnā tātou. And you'll find all of that in L101, Council's policy on strategic land bank. I just wanted to draw that attention to that to ensure that work being undertaken is in line with that policy.
Sorry, could you say that again?
Policy number L101, Council's policy, strategic land banking. Just wanted to ensure that that was working alongside or in reference to.
That we have got a large number of policies that need to be reviewed, and
I only draw that.
That's yeah. So I'm sure that Ben and the team will have drawn attention to whatever current policy is there. But again, that's something that Steve will be asked to look at, as the policies that we've got sitting across the organisation. But that will also fit into our future governance structure workshops as to what governance, how we structure our governance groups, and whether policies best sit with each individual governance group rather than how they've previously sat under CEO. So we'll have a piece of work to do on that.
I only drew attention to that because a lot of the questions are answered in that policy. Thank you.
Mover and seconder that we receive the CE report. Malcolm, Sophie, all those in favour say aye. Anyone against? Declare it carried. Next item is tab 8, page 36 of today's agenda. Recommendation that Council resolves to adopt the required amendments to Schedule 2 of the Waste Minimisation and Management Bylaw. Andrew.
So this paper relates to the amendment of the Waste Management and Minimisation Bylaw. I've been trying to get this paper in front of council for a couple of months now. It relates to the national standardisation of curbside recycling that took effect from the 1st of February. Effectively, what we've done is ensure alignment between our local waste bylaw and the national legislation by amending the acceptable material schedule within the bylaw. The Council's general bylaw allows for such changes to schedules. It's been communicated nationally and locally and has been a relatively minor change for Selwyn. We were mostly aligned already. Thank you.
Thank you. Moved Shane. Is there a seconder? Thank you, Elizabeth. Nicole.
Thanks for that. Obviously, you've got now in front of us the whole waste management and minimisation bylaw. I see that in 6.13, which is on 46, we talk about the approved collection container shall be placed at the curbside or drop-off point in such a manner as to avoid any undue restriction of vehicle traffic or pedestrian flow. And on the page after, we have 6.22, and instances where the placement of the contents of the approved collection container is known to be non-compliant, the authorised licensed collector will issue a notice attached to the approved collection, providing guidance on the correct use of particular. No, I'm reading the wrong one. Anyway, essentially what I'm trying to say is, do we follow up about bins being across the footpaths? It is a serious issue when it is bin day for people trying to maneuver around. I mean, I assume it's the same in other towns, but where I am, it's bloody hard. And also in the trucks are putting the bins back. It can take, so it definitely takes up the whole width of a footpath, which is only 1/2 metre wide. But it takes up shared footpaths they manage, which are 2 metres wide, to take up the whole width of those as well. So someone who's in a wheelchair or has mobility issues, or any kids on bikes or anything like that, or people walking, it's actually quite a problem.
Andrew?
So typically the clause 6.22 would relate to the proximity of the bin to things like lampposts, letterboxes, and obstructions that affect the ability to lift it. And 6.13 relates to the vehicle or pedestrian flows. We don't go out, excuse me, we don't go out and audit the bin placements to confirm whether they are or are not restricting traffic flows.
Well, it's pedestrian flow is what I'm concerned about, because it does, and it is quite an issue, and particularly when you may have a long weekend or whatever, and these bins are out for a length of period, quite a length of time. If anything, it's at least a day a week where the footpath is being obstructed. So I'm just asking whether we can look at something going forward at other options. Tennyson Street, when it had the water race going down it, the bins could go on the road. I don't know there was any issue with that. There's also, if there's grass verges between the road and the footpath, they can be on the grass verge. So I wonder if there's a bigger picture that we need to be looking at, because we've signed up to an accessibility charter. Well, this is a day a week where there are serious accessibility issues around our towns.
Nicole, I wonder, and just I think I'm hearing you that you support what's in here. It's around the enforcement of.
But it's also
whether
looking
right or
wider
not.
at what we're doing, and this comes under another piece of work that we have with the accessibility charter. Sorry, it's an opportunity for me bringing it up, but it's been an issue that I have brought up in the past, and it is a continuing issue, which isn't going to change.
No, but it's not going to change whether or not we.
No,
adopt it today,
it's not.
But when we're talking about enforcement, and when that comes through, and Sue's having the presentations on our enforcement, Sharon, around whether that's not normally this committee, sorry, not normally this meeting, just probably your committee, Nicole, when it comes up, we can make sure that's part of the agenda for the conversation as a follow-up from here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
But I think it's not, like I said, there's also can go into our engineering standards and stuff like that to have it as like talking about grass verges as opposed to having footpaths right up to curbs and stuff like that. It's a bigger issue.
urban design certainly does play quite a large factor in where the
Yeah.
bins can be placed.
And it's going to get worse as we've got houses that are getting closer together. And
Sorry.
You go.
I think that sounds like a great workshop for the committee that you chair and with Bob too.
yes,
So perhaps, if that's okay, Madam Chair, as chair of that
no,
committee,
yes, that would be great.
yes, that might be a great piece of
Thank you.
workshopping for your committee.
Grant.
Thanks, Andrew. Just checking on page 54 of the track changes, you've removed aerosol cans from curbside recovery. I just wondered on page 56, it says the aerosol cans are permitted at the waste diverted material facility. Is that correct, or is that need just moving and taking out as well?
We can, excuse me, we can accept aerosols within the scrap metal at the transfer station.
That's correct.
Yeah.
So you can't put your aerosols in your recycling bin, but you can accept them at the transfer station.
Correct.
For recycling. Okay, that's cool. Thank you very much for that.
Sophie.
Yeah, I am supporting Nicole, so I'm very happy to hear this might be a workshop soon. But I just wanted to add that I absolutely support the bylaw amendments, but this is also an issue with the contractor in that I have actually spoken sometimes to the drivers and asked, why are you putting the bins down in a staggered fashion? So you pick it up from the curbside and then they put it down in the middle of the footpath. Literally, some of them use that as a way of tracking whether they've picked a bin up yet or not. And that is deliberately blocking our footpaths. There's the bylaw part, and there's how the operator is doing it, and then there's how it impacts people. It's actually probably more than one committee's worth of workshop, or at least combining several topics.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, it's a new one to me. We can definitely take that up with our contractor. Yep.
Oh, thank you. Elizabeth.
3 things. So I just wanted to know if we've got a solution in the future for batteries. If you're looking at that, recycling batteries or disposing of batteries, what do you currently provide? Because sorry, I'm not clear on that. Pizza boxes, I see on page 56, it talks about food soiled cardboard such as pizza boxes. But I'm pretty sure, and correct me if I'm wrong, so if I think you were there at the plastics thing, so the waste management guy said that pizza boxes, as long as I got no pizza in it, actually fine to go in the recycling bin. Is that correct? Do you remember that? Oh, okay. Yeah, he did say that they were fine. So I'm just wondering if we need to just update that on 56, because it'd be great if pizza boxes can go in when the pizza's eaten. And the third one was ash. I just wanted to check, is ash purely a health and safety issue in terms of fire, that we don't put it's prohibited in organic material because, or is it just the very nature that it could be treated timber that's ash? I'm just wondering why ash is not allowed in the organic material bins if it's cold.
Yep, thank you. So in terms of battery recycling, just so I can be clear, that only changes, there's no other changes to the bylaw other than the changes in order to meet the national legislation. Everything else that we're discussing has been previously approved in the 2019 review of the bylaw. But in terms of batteries, we do have battery recycling receptacles at Lincoln New World, Rolleston New World, and the Recovery Park. Yes, we do. Sorry, I should clarify, the Lincoln and Rolleston New Worlds have just been paused temporarily while we were awaiting new improved battery receptacle systems. They won't be as pretty, but they're safer.
Okay, sorry, can you just reply whether you can take batteries at the moment, just because that's quite good public knowledge, because Lincoln's obviously closed and people would like to know where they can go.
Yep, so there's signage, there should be signage on both the Lincoln and Rolleston New World locations where the battery recycling receptacles were. That's what the store owners had said to me. And the only facility currently receiving for the next month is the Recovery Park. So if people can just hang on to their batteries for a month, then we should be back in action at both those sites. Yep.
Again, Andrew.
Yeah, pizza boxes. So there might be some confusion there. Previously, Selwyn has been able to accept pizza boxes either in the recycling if they're empty of pizza, or in the organics if they've still got food in them or are heavily contaminated. The national directive is that we are not to accept fibre products, paper and cardboard, within the organics service as a result mainly of the PFAS chemical issue that's present in everything. So they are acceptable in the curbside recycling. And lastly, ash, yeah, it's an interesting one. It's not so much related to it not being acceptable in the bin at all. Ash in organics bins can be derived from treated timber, and that's the fear for sure. And secondly, even natural timber burnt concentrates naturally occurring arsenic into the ash as well. So it's just another reason to avoid taking the or avoiding things like arsenic in the compost. Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew, for that. You mentioned this bylaws 2019. See, there was a review done in 2021 on page 52. Are we due for a full review? Like, this is an update to catch up with legislation, but are we due for a full review of this, or is 2021 the date? And we're thinking 5 years from, because 5 years from 2019 is now. 5 years from 2021 gives us another couple of years before the full review. Do you have a time frame on when you were thinking a full review would happen of this bylaw?
So yeah, the 2019 was the full review. The 2021 was an amendment to alter the schedule to the plastics 1, 2 and 5. So the bylaw, I believe, would be due for review next year. I thought every 6 years, I believe.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
and
6 to 10. Yeah.
The question for you, Sharon, around the schedules that sit along bylaws, is council approval of those schedules the right place to have that decision made?
As in what gets brought to council for this comes into the delegations.
Yes.
And again, the delegations is another piece of work that is on Steve's list of things to do, because we need to have a good overhaul of our delegations.
Steve, busy man. It's good. Good. Yes. Okay, no, that's good. Thank you. I just think we need to review where the right level of decision making sits. Cool. And we don't want, as you've said, Andrew, a couple of months waiting if the right level of delegation is to staff on matters that could have been updated already. Great. We had a mover and seconder. All those in favour say aye. Anyone against? Declare it carried. Thanks, Andrew.
Thank you.
Next one is amendments to the designation and conditions for Rakaia Commercial Vehicle Safety Centre. It's on page 64 of today's agenda.
Second.
We have got Ben Beard just to give a little bit of a update, and then those speedy movers and seconders will jump into after that.
Yes. Yeah, so this is just an amendment to the existing designation. The change is to reflect work that showing the safety issue and having it on one side of the road. So they've identified another site over the road so that heavy vehicles don't have to cross the highway to get into their whatever the commercial vehicle safety centre. So that's the change. It's all pretty straightforward.
Great. And there's an update that Sharon's just alerted me to, that the delegation needs to be, in B, needs to be to the CEO, not to the team leader policy for any other little changes that needs to be to make this, to give it effect.
Right. Cool.
So we'll just so I don't think we need to amend that on the board, but if everyone understands, B is to the CEO, not to the policy team leader.
That just to Steve. I think he gets everything now, does he?
It was the Steve. Malcolm and Shane moved and seconded. All those in favour say aye. Anyone against? Declare it carried. Thanks, Ben. Tab 10 is the council submission on the draft GPS for land transport, that we received the report and respectively endorsed the report, which has been sent. And for all that, thank you for everyone for contributing to that. Deborah, you're moving. Okay, seconding Sophie. Is there any discussion? All those in favour say aye. Anyone against? Declare it carried. Thank you. And we had hoped that we might be able to speak to that submission, but there's no opportunity to do that as my understanding. So they will receive the submissions and make final decisions. But we have asked for that if the opportunity becomes available. Next up, we have a presentation, tab 10 of the Chief Digital Officer. Matt, welcome